Hey folks, how are you doing? Sasan with Proteus Debate Academy here. Um, Not a lot of videos lately, but here's one, and we're gonna try to get back into it soon. Just the ultimate irony of us having a debate channel and being debate coaches is the exact part of the year where the interest is highest in debate content. We are also the busiest. I don't know if you can see all these like bags under my eyes. It's 9 p.m. And you might be thinking, okay, well, Sasan didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I slept 9 hours last night. I slept 9 hours the night before that. Um, I just have a lot going on with my new job, which I'm sure you'll hear about sooner or later. But anyway, oh, one other announcement. Paul has a couple really cool life updates. Um, the one that I feel comfortable sharing is that he is now the director of forensics at the college debate program that we both went to and that I coached him at. And that's really cool. Another announcement is that in like the last couple weeks, we've had three of our former competitors, one of whom, Tanya, she was in one of our videos. The other two, Tristan and Brenna, they've been in the comments and whatever, all become like college national champions. So Tanya won the NFALD championship at Pi Kappa Delta, and Brenna and Tristan won Parley. They were the NPDA champions. Um, so that's massively huge, and I'm proud of both of them, all three of them. Anyway, the point of that message is that you should listen to what we have to say about debate. Like, clearly we are right and everyone else is wrong. But okay, the clickbaity title that you're here for. I think I work in an organization and I talk to a lot of people who are like, there's a lot of discussions going on about ChatGPT and how that relates to like Extemp and how that relates to debate, especially Parley and like limited prep stuff, but even like LD, right? And I think most people are thinking of ChatGPT in the wrong way. So here is what I think people are worried about with ChatGPT, right? So let's go write an extemp speech answering the prompt. Let's see. Uh, how can educators utilize AI technology to enhance the to better address the uh, let's say financial inequities in education. Let's see this. Let's see this speech. So off the bat, you can tell this is not a great extemp speech, right? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here today to discuss an issue that is critical for the future of education financial inequities. Unfortunately, this problem continues to persist. First and foremost, I mean, the whole point of extemp is that your judges are looking for a list of stuff to be checked off, right? So much of forensics is these norms and structures that we work within, that if you try to use AI to fake that and the AI doesn't understand what it is that you're trying to do, you're just not going to fit it within that. First of all, this is nowhere near 7 minutes long. No one says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for whatever. You're not reading the question, right? So this would be a very bad extemp speech. also you would have to write it down word for word or memorize it, right? Like that's not what this tool is particularly good at. Now, you could argue that you can sit down with ChatGPT and explain to it all of these norms that we have and explain to it what is considered good and why the thing that is considered good is considered good, right? But at the point where you understand that at the level of being able to explain it to the AI, you can probably just do it on your own. Maybe there's still some concern there, but that's not really what I think is valuable, or valuable about this tool. Let's take the current LD topic. So I keep bumping this mic in camera. Okay. NSDA topics, something about term limits, right? Okay, so let's go with write an affirmative case for the following LD topic. Okay, so again, starting weird. Oh, this is open borders. I don't want to do this one. Stop generating. Let's do where's the Supreme Court? Here we go. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, it's going to say that every time. So maybe the way you'll tell if somebody plagiarized the speech from ChatGPT is if they thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. So, okay, we're not getting any sort of like value criterion, value premise, whatever you want to call it. We're not getting any framework. We're not getting any definitions. We're not going to having anything labeled a contention. We don't have advantages. We don't really have, let's see, do we have a good impact here? Term limits would ensure, I mean, the arguments are like 3 sentences long, right? This is not an acceptable case. If a student of mine turned this in and this was genuinely their own work, I would not approve of this. Let's be more specific. Use advantage structure to write an argument that says that having term limits for the Supreme Court will increase the legitimacy of the court. In that contention, have the impact scenario explain that without legitimacy, we are heading toward a constitutional crisis, and explain why that is bad. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to present blah, 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 blah. Advantage structure. Okay. This isn't really what I look for in advantage structure. Impact scenario. Constitutional crisis. Let's see. It could lead to a constitutional crisis, upholding constitutional foundation of democracy without legitimacy, the court's decisions, blah. Breakdown of the constitutional order. This isn't really what you want as a debater, right? And you could argue, oh, well, we're waiting for the AI to get better. But ChatGPT is an insanely powerful tool. But what it's powerful for is not generating ideas and generating content. It is the best search engine ever made. Now, I have a lot of videos on this YouTube channel talking about like searching, and I have one on like on everycrsreport.com, and most of what I do in debate is research, and I pride myself on that. I think I'm a very good debate researcher, right? Like when 5 years ago, when the public forum topic was like the current AUMF gives the president too much power, I did research and I was like, oh, okay, there's three current AUMFs, and according to three different sources, none of them, like AUMFs in general, are not a source of power. And here's the Cornell Law Review and Harvard Law Review and the CRS report, like explaining that and getting into the legal theory of authorization. And did you know that more military, like more operations of military force have been done without AUMFs, without authorization, than with? These are like, that is what I do. But that is really difficult. So let's take one scenario. Today, with this Supreme Court topic, I had a student call me and say, hey, I've been trying to make this legitimacy argument for the affirmative, and I can't think of an impact. And I was like, okay, what you want to look for is something called a constitutional crisis, and then you just want an impact for why that's bad. And he was like, well, I can't really find anything. And I was like, okay, well, argue it can lead to a civil war. And I tried to help him search for this, but it was really difficult. And the reason why it was really difficult is because there's a lot of writing about how a constitutional crisis caused the American Civil War of the 1860s. So just imagine like trying to Google like constitutional crisis, Civil War, but not the war called the Civil War, the concept of a civil war, right? Really, really difficult to do. And I spent a while, 20, 30 minutes, like just trying to do this. And I eventually had to tell that student, look, I'm just going to get back to you on this. I ended up on ChatGPT the other day to help me with another research question for debate. So first I'm going to show you this other thing, and then we'll come back to like how it can help you research for your cases. A couple days ago, I was thinking about progressive debate, like critiques and stuff, and like why I don't like critiques. And I was thinking about like there's nothing. I think when you describe not liking something in progressive debate, people think that what you like is traditional debate, but that's not the case. And I realized that what I don't like about, well, the thought I had, I don't know if this is true, I'm still chewing on this idea, but I wondered whether what I don't like about progressive debate is how like postmodernist it is, right? So postmodernism is a philosophical movement that started in the 70s, 50s, I don't know, but it was very common in like the 70s, 80s, through the 90s, and then around the late 90s to today it got replaced. And I was like, well, I wonder how rooted critiques are in postmodernist philosophy and values and framing. And so I asked ChatGPT some questions, which I want you to imagine how long this would have taken for me to do on my own, right? So what are the most common kinds of critiques people run in high school, Lincoln Douglas? Immediately, I get the 6 most common. Now, I don't know if these are still the most common. ChatGPT only has data up to 2021, right? So recency is not what we're looking for. I would probably also put some like anti-blackness and like Afro-pess and stuff like that in there. But whatever, we have a list of critiques. Okay, my next question is, thank you. You mentioned blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me the most common authors for all of these? Instantly, I get Marx, Engels, David Harvey, Naomi Klein. I get a bunch of things, right? A bunch of answers. And if this is even 70% accurate, it would have taken me so long to find this information. I talk all the time in my new job about like, what is the role of a judge? Like, not a judge, a coach. what is the role of a coach, right? Like, does a coach need to be good at debate in order to be a good debate coach? Like, my debate coach didn't know anything about debate, but he was. I think the role of a coach is to be a great support system, a good administrator, and to help people understand the feedback that they're getting. Like look at the ballot and be like, hey man, it says here you need to slow down, because people have a really hard time looking at the ballots and actually seeing what it is the other person's trying to see. What I don't think is required of a coach is to be the best debater in the room, to know the most about technical debate questions, because you can find that stuff other places. You can find that stuff on this YouTube channel. You can find it on Discord. You can make friends with other people. Like, that information is out there to the people who seek it out. This also is a massive tool for using this, right? This is stuff that I don't know enough about critiques to be able to teach my students. I don't know that Paul would be able to tell you, oh, okay, here's all the critiques and all of the authors that are used on that. How many coaches in the country can do that? And is that a valuable skill for a coach to have? Like, the amount of time that goes into developing that skill, is that what you want your coaches working on, rather than all of the other things that go into producing successful competitors? But let's go farther than that. Now I want to know, what eras are these authors from? Because I'm thinking, wow, we don't use a lot of like modern philosophers in critiques. And here is now immediately a breakdown of all of these Ks and the eras in which their authors wrote their most influential work. Now I'm saying, hey, what portion of these authors do you think would be fairly described as being postmodernist? You can describe it as a percentage or in whatever way you think makes sense. Okay, here we go. I would say about 50% of them would be described as postmodernist, or at least having contributed to postmodernist thought in some way. And then here's a list of the ones that are the most postmodernist. And that's 80% of the, and I say, okay, which critiques that you mentioned is the least postmodernist? And it says, well, I think overall it would probably be the security critique, right? I think, and I was like, what about the anti-blackness K, right? A K that it did not mention. I was like, what are the common authors, and would you consider them to be postmodernist? And it's like, well, not really. And it explains that. And I said, how can, what do I owe you? And it said to spread the good word. Okay, so as a way of getting information from a massive set of places that you would have to read and process on your own, this is an incredible tool to any debater. But let's go back to that example that I had earlier, right? I would not have found these. So I asked, oh yeah, okay, let's get here. Okay, this screenshot is not as good. I said, I've read that a constitutional crisis can lead to a civil war. I'm trying to find a reliable source, such as an article or academic paper, that supports this idea. What I'm hoping to find is evidence that I can cite to support the argument that if there was a significant enough constitutional crisis in the United States today, it could feasibly lead to a civil war. But I'm having difficulty searching for this because Google keeps giving me results from articles talking about how a constitutional crisis caused the American Civil War in the 1860s. The Wikipedia article, Constitutional Crisis, mentions that they can lead to civil wars, but there isn't a source cited for that claim. Is there any way you can help me out? Here's what ChatGPT had to say. While there is no single definitive source that explicitly states that a constitutional crisis in the United States would necessarily lead to a civil war, there are several sources that suggest the possibility. One such source is a 2017 article in The Atlantic titled "A Constitutional Crisis Could Trigger a Civil War" by Peter Beinart. In this article, Beinart argues that the polarization of American politics has reached such a point that a constitutional crisis could potentially lead to a violent conflict. He cites historical historical examples of civil wars in other countries that were triggered by a constitutional crisis and argues that the United States is not immune to such a fate. Another source from 2018 paper published in the Journal of Political Science Quarterly titled Constitutional Crisis and Institutional Change Explaining Civil War in Africa by James D. Long and Jeremy M. Weinstein. While the paper focuses on civil wars in Africa, it provides a theoretical framework for understanding how constitutional crises can lead to violent conflict. So, for all I know, these sources aren't real, right? Like, it's not enough to look at this and be like, and so the argument is done. I know that ChatGPT can just make things up. It doesn't like saying your question isn't possible to answer. And so it'll just give you some sort of answer. But all I have to do now is just check this stuff and see if I can find what I'm looking for. Like, think about how difficult it is to explain to Google, this is the specific thing I am looking for this purpose, and I will know that I found what I'm looking for if it accomplishes blank. That is something that ChatGPT can do, and it does it really well. Good debaters, we talk about this in our writing arguments from the bottom up argument. When I'm writing a debate case, I'm not opening a book on the Supreme Court and just reading through it until I find something I want to cite. What I'm doing is I have in my mind a list of strong impacts that I know are very useful tools for winning the game of debate. In other words, at the end of the day, a debate judge is voting on an impact. And if my argument doesn't have an impact, it's not going to win the debate round for me against another debater who's very good. So there's a handful of impacts that I really like and that I find really useful. That number is somewhere between 5 and 15. And the process of writing a case for me is finding the strongest link between those impacts and the policy described in the resolution, and making the strongest case for it that I can. And that is something that ChatGPT is enormously useful for, right? If you say, can you find something that exists in your body of knowledge that demonstrates a relationship between this thing over here and this thing over here, that it can do really, really well. And in fact, I would argue that is the entire purpose of ChatGPT. That's what it's built to do. It can do other things as a result of that, but it is the victim of mediocrity in the process of doing it, right? ChatGPT models its, if you ask it to write a screenplay, it's a cliche machine, right? By definition, it is a cliche machine, because a cliche is just the least thoughtful, least inventive, most common way of doing something, right? And that is what ChatGPT is trained to give you. It has no way of assessing whether the answer it produces you is good or bad outside of you telling it to follow some other metric. Beyond that, it's just what's corroborated by the most data that it has. So it's not a terribly good writer. And maybe one day by like ChatGPT 7, it will be, and then we have to come back to answer this question of like, well, what do we do about ChatGPT and Extemp, and CFLs will allow ChatGPT, and is that good or is that bad, and what does that mean for how hard the students are working or whatever. But like, I'm decent at debate, right? I was never as like good in debate rounds as Paul. I'm a much better coach than I was a competitor, but I'm still pretty decent. And I'm going to venture a guess that I can beat anyone at debate who is using ChatGPT. In fact, there was a post on the debate subreddit a few days ago. Somebody made this AI tool, and they like didn't want to disclose how, but clearly it was ChatGPT, and they just like gave it, oh no, don't, Why is this ringing? Hold on. Are we still here? Okay, cool. My phone rang. Sorry. Um, I hope no one's dead. Clearly, it was just ChatGPT being given some instructions, and the idea was that you have a debate with this AI about a topic of your choosing. And I had a debate about copyright law because I have this my hottest take is that we should just abolish copyright. That literally every argument against it, just I don't care about. Like the worst impacts are already happening, and any other impact that I've ever heard, I just don't care about. Anyway, had this debate, and the way this program worked is you have a debate, and then the AI argues back, and it just used very circular reasoning, and I'm trying to argue like, hey, like that is very circular reasoning. Like you're still not explaining why this thing is bad. It was like explaining, like I asked the question like, why is it bad for artists to not be paid for their work? And it would be like, yeah. It's bad because without copyright they wouldn't be. And it's like I know. So this tool also had like a button on it that was like judge, and then the AI then looks at what you had said and what the AI had said, and then it determines who was better at arguing. And it was like, you win. Your arguments were better. And like in the comments, I'm not trying to call anybody out or anything like that, but in the comments, the person who had made it was like, yeah, really it's a better tool for beginners. Well, I wonder how many debaters are losing a debate to this AI, right? Like, I don't think the number is significantly high. And I don't know who that tool is actually benefiting. Like, who is worse at debate than this AI who is good at gathering data, but is really bad at answering, like, critical questions or making connections between things or whatever. Bringing this all back, I think AI is, or I guess I don't even like using the term AI. It's just a better search engine. ChatGPT is a really good search engine, and 95% of the stuff that I do in debate rounds or in prepping for debates, I should say, is just navigating search engines. Whether it's the Google search engine or whether that's reading through, like, navigating Wikipedia, or whether that's navigating every CRS report, like, that is a lot of work. And it is a massive, like, gap between, it's a massive, like, equity gap. Like, I'm teaching kids in schools, like public schools in New York, who don't have the tech literacy that other kids do, and don't have a lot of the same, like, resources. A lot of them don't have, like, laptops at home that they can use to do this stuff. But you get them in the room and you explain a point and you have them discuss it, and they can hold their own. They are as smart as any kids that I've taught. I've taught a lot of super rich kids, and they're not great at critical thinking or making decisions for themselves, right? But something like this has the power to bridge that gap. And I don't know the most ethical and effective way of doing that just yet. But I think in terms of how this tool, how we should be talking about the use of this tool in forensics, I think we're wasting our time talking about, like, plagiarism and AI writing speeches for you, or whether we shouldn't use it at all. Because I think the things that we are worried about, it just isn't good at. And frankly, once AI gets really good at this thing, What is the point in training humans to be slightly like better at it when we have this like, right? We don't teach people to do long math by hand anymore, right? No person going through the school system in the last 200 years has had to, well, whatever, since that calculator, has had to learn how to effectively or more effectively or had to practice like 892,763 divided by 47. Like, we just don't need to do that. We have a tool that has made that obsolete, right? I don't know that ChatGPT has made anything obsolete now, but I think the best case scenario for AI is that it does make certain things obsolete, certain forms of labor, certain navigating just useless data less relevant. And I want to bring this to your attention because I think it is a tool that you should be using. And I know just today it was very helpful to me. Anyway, we'll be back with some more videos, some more life updates. I'm going to be on Malcolm Gladwell's podcast. That's weird. I don't know if I'm going to be in like, I haven't like told anybody. I don't personally know. This is the first time I've mentioned it publicly because I don't know if I'm going to be in like 6 seconds of it or if I'm going to be in like 30 minutes of it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. That's going to come out soon. I taught Malcolm Gladwell how to flow. That was fun. Just a regular 59-year-old guy. But it was fun. We got along. Anyway, I'm going to go put out like 300 other fires in my life and in my work. But hey, good work. We're at the end of the season, right? Yeah, we're close to it. I guess not so much in high school, but in college. And I'm proud of you, kid. If you're watching this, you're probably putting in an effort. And I think having the courage to care is a huge deal, right? I think part of the reason why all of the most successful competitors that I've worked with have been women is because like there's a very common masculine urge to like think that the things that you're bad at don't matter or they suck or they're dumb, right? And if you're watching this, regardless of how well your season went or is going, it shows that you're willing to put in that work in your free time. And you know what? I'm proud of you. All right, folks.